It's the way to go. Eat a fig, not a pig. Let your kindness show. If it's your wig or a jig or a swig, do you dig? Big. It's the way to go. It's Big Fat Vegan Radio.
When something's fat, there's a lot to show. It's gotta be fat to help the movement grow. Making fat loud chat that won't be flat. It's fat. And here's our show. It's Big Fat Vegan Radio.
I just got that vegan glow, like a drag queen calling Patrick Goudreau. I'm a YouTube vegan cooking up good eating. Veganism makes me glow. It's Big Fat Vegan Radio.
All right, vegans, all together now. When something's fat, there's a lot to show. It's gotta be fat to help the movement grow. Making fat loud chat that won't be flat. It's fat.
It's the way to go.
It's Big Fat Vegan Radio.
Hey everyone, welcome to Big Fat Vegan Radio's second interview episode. I'm here with Laura Yaz.
And I'm here with Honey LeBronx, everyone's favorite vegan drag queen.
Also known as...
Ben Strothman.
Thank you. And we have a very special interview for you guys today. Documentary filmmaker Donny Moss, he brought us the documentary Blinders, The Truth Behind the Tradition. It's a documentary about the horse carriage industry in New York City. And he's coming on the show today to talk with me and Laura about his role in the fight against the horse carriage industry. So without further ado, here is our interview with Donny Moss.
Enjoy.
Okay, so we're pretty much ready. So for now, I'm nervous. How do we even start? How are we going to launch into this?
You want to do it like a call? Okay, we'll talk about that.
Not a call. Just we sat down with, because we're clearly not on the phone. So yeah. So
well, why don't you just say who Donny Moss is?
I'm afraid to.
Really?
He's my hero.
Oh,
he's sitting right across.
You are pretty great. You're pretty great. You know,
I think I don't think we can get a better intro than that. I say we're going. And...
well, he's made a movie.
He has made a movie. So we are sitting down with activist, documentary filmmaker, and vegan.
An awesome person.
And my personal hero, Donny Moss.
Oh, I can't take it.
Hey, Donny. Welcome to Big Fat Vegan Radio.
Thank you for coming over.
Yay, I'm so excited to have you on the show.
Me too.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. We have a lot to get into today. The reason that we wanted to have Donny on the show is because when I went vegan, I started to, my consciousness started to expand. Like, oh, so I can't wear leather anymore? And, oh, well, I can't support the circus anymore. And every new thing that I heard about, I was kind of like, my first reaction was always, give me a break. Like, really? And then I'm like, oh, yeah, that's kind of not ethical. And then I heard about the horse carriage industry, and I was like, no, come on. Well, what's wrong with that? And I started YouTubing, because I don't Google things, I YouTube them. And every time I looked up horse carriage, and I didn't know what any of this meant, but every time I looked up horse-drawn carriages, the name Donny Moss came up, and the name Christine Quinn came up. And I started looking into it, and I learned so much about this guy, and now here we are talking to him.
Mm-hmm. And you're right. I mean, it really does, on the surface, it does, for people who don't have a trained eye, look like a benign thing, taking a horse-drawn carriage ride. After all, they're right there on 59th Street, in full public view, and so there's a veneer of, that it's okay.
And it's like New York romanticism to it. That's definitely what my mom's reaction was when I first started talking about it. She was like, I love those. They need to stay in New York forever. And I was like, oh my gosh. She just doesn't, it's just like you said, she doesn't see it when she looks at them. She sees like a movie scene.
And, the thing I say to people is tradition is no excuse for abuse. I mean, bullfights were part of the culture in Spain. And now the region of Catalonia has banned them. And tourists are still going there.
Who was it? I think Gary Francione said something about, like, he was on some panel and someone was arguing about how tradition for why we should eat animals or whatnot, and he finally just said, and I forget how he said it, he said something along the lines of, like, you can look at anyone's culture or heritage or history, and at some point you will find something cruel. It's something cruel that is part of someone's tradition.
Yeah, no. When I heard James E. McWilliams speak, who's like, I'm totally have a huge crush on him now, by the way, for the record. But he said when he spoke, he said everyone everyone says, oh, well, we've always done A, B, or C. And he's like, well, we've always abused women. We've always had slavery. And it's like,
yeah,
it's the truth.
I heard they're bringing that back, though.
Oh, cool. You want to hit me right now?
Keep talking. Interrupt me one more time.
We'll say something interesting first.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess I don't know where should we start with this.
Well, I guess maybe what got you to be. I mean, so what inspired you to make the movie Blinders?
Yeah.
So back in 2006, when I, like you, Ben, started to have an increased consciousness about animal suffering, I saw the protesters out on 59th Street, and then there was a horrible horse-drawn carriage accident where a horse spooked and bolted into traffic and died, and the driver flew out of the carriage and ended up in a coma, and that was spotty. And all of this was happening. It got a lot of publicity, and I thought, I've always walked by these carriage horses and sort of turned my head a little bit, thinking, I don't want to see this. Mm-hmm. And I decided I don't want to turn my head anymore. I want to learn more about this. And I picked up a video camera, and I started to document what I was seeing. One thing led to another, and it turned into a 50-minute documentary that aired on the documentary channel and will soon be available on iTunes.
Oh, wonderful.
And so I took it all around the country at film festivals. And one of the things that I think I learned in the process of screening this movie is that it's very easy for people to get behind a ban on horse-drawn carriages because it doesn't affect their life. But if I had made the same movie about meat or leather or circuses, I probably would have met much more resistance. Yeah. But, I showed the facts, and they're indisputable. There are certain conditions in New York City that simply cannot be corrected in a way that would make the operation of horse-drawn carriages humane or safe. Mm-hmm. There's no pasture in New York City.
Yeah.
And horses should have the opportunity to turn out to graze every day, especially after a hard day's work hauling carriages in midtown traffic.
I don't know where people assume these horses are retired to at the end of the day.
They picture something nice the same way they picture something nice with food. People picture pigs like in an open, green, beautiful land. They don't picture them in stalls. Well, it's the same thing. They don't picture the horses in like a studio building in downtown Manhattan lined up with like no space to move.
And by their proximity,
but that's the truth.
By their proximity to Central Park, and as vast as the park is, I think people assume, or at least I assume,
I can tell you that
they're just in there somewhere. They're in the park. They have a little
when I was interviewing tourists after they took their horse-drawn carriage rides for my documentary, one tourist after another answered the question, where do you think they live the same way? Well, aren't they in the park? In the park, right? It never even occurred to anybody that the horses have up to a 2-mile commute through midtown traffic.
Yeah.
During rush hour, back to a warehouse building.
Yeah.
Or that it would be unmanageable to keep them in the park. That's not like a real possibility. How could you?
Yeah.
And you know what? Even the New York Times, they did an editorial a couple years ago saying that the horse-drawn carriage industry should stay, but they should keep the carriages in the park. Well, if they had done any homework at all, they would have known that that's not an option. The park is a landmark, and the Central Park Conservancy and the Parks Department would never allow a building for a for-profit industry to be
business.
built. Yeah, in Central Park, it's never going to happen.
Yeah.
So people need to stop saying, well, why don't they just put them in the park? It's not going to happen.
And then they're just going to graze in Central Park? I mean, get real. That's not realistic.
And the rule of thumb is an acre per horse for pasture. I mean, that's a quarter of the park or something.
You know when this would have been possible, though, in New York City to give them that kind of a turnout to pasture? Remember back before white man got to Manhattan? I think most Manhattan would have been all right for horses back then because they had all the space.
Alec Baldwin put it so well. He hosted a screening of Blinders, and he said, I would support the horse-drawn carriage industry as soon as they take all the cars out of Manhattan, put the horses in stables in the park, give them pasture, pave the streets with dirt instead of asphalt. Then it's fine.
Yeah.
But none of those things are ever going to happen. It's simply unfixable.
Yeah,
They're anachronistic. As someone said in Blinders, it looks like these carriages have been dropped in the middle of the street from a different century.
Yeah.
But people are so used to seeing them that they've condition themselves into thinking it's okay.
Yeah, but look, that is not what people are coming to New York City for. That's not what people are buying plane tickets and spending thousands of dollars on hotel rooms and bringing their whole family here and taking off work so they can ride around in a horse. I mean, it's not...
nobody would not come to New York for that. I mean, and even because I came to New York a lot as a kid with my family before I moved here as an adult, and of all the trips we took, we went in a horse carriage once. I mean, I really remember it because we went through the park. It's a really vivid memory for me. But that's dozens of trips I'm talking about. We went in a horse carriage one time.
Yeah.
And that's something that my mom thinks is like the greatest thing to do. So I'm talking about someone who's passionate about it, who wants to do it. Dozens of trips we did it one time. Mm-hmm. So, you know, don't tell me that people, you know, they're gonna. No one will miss it.
As I said, as Alec Baldwin said, if you took these horses off the streets tomorrow, the hotels will still be full, as will the restaurants, theater, museums.
Absolutely. And I think it's Bloomberg that keeps saying how, you know, we need this for tourist dollars. But I wonder if anyone knows how much in tourist dollars is this actually bringing into our city in revenue?
First of all, it's an all-cash business.
Yeah.
So they're probably paying very little in the way of income taxes. Number one.
Interesting.
And number two, they're charging illegally, or have charged, when I was making my movie, they were charging tourists sales tax, which they're not allowed to do. Really? So they're pocketing all of this money in cash, and they're not paying taxes on it.
And I'm sure they make deals on the fly all the time. And, like, negotiate the price all the time.
Right. It's a fixed price, but they overcharge all the time.
Of course.
And I saw that when I was making my movie. I asked people, how much did they charge you? And they said $50 when it was $34.
And apparently, it wasn't a regulation passed where they have to have, like, clear, visible, unobstructed rate cards because they were, like, draping fancy little floral things and blankets over the rate cards so people weren't seeing them. The truth is, tourists, they're dumb. You know, I mean, just as I am dumb when I go to a different country and I don't know what's what there, it's easy to take advantage of someone if you don't know.
Yeah, you also want to think the best. People do want to think the best. That's part of that, you know, image. Like, well, they all must just live here in Central Park. You know, everyone just wants to think the best.
And that's because everyone, I think everyone in their heart, they have the horse's best interest in heart, you know, or at least they would. You know, if you see this animal, you know, it's just like I think if you are eating a cheeseburger and someone trots a cow into the building and you see that cow, you're going to go, oh, and you're going to want the best for that cow, you know, but there's just such a disconnect.
But you would probably still finish the hamburger because you haven't made that connection.
You'd probably say, oh, with your mouth full. You're like, oh,
yeah, and then eat the rest of the seriously, it's a complete disconnect.
But it's a journey for everybody because the three of us had that disconnect before.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Sure. Even once I went vegan, I still, you know, there was a part of me, you know, the way I was brought up, like anyone picketing or holding a sign is just kind of a bad guy and a bully. So like anytime I see someone picketing or protesting something, I'm always like, oh, look at these hippies, get a job. And that's the reaction that I had to these people, you know, protesting the horse carriage industry until I started looking into it. And yeah, I realized like it's so unfair that any being should have to do this for the rest of their life. And, you know, it's funny because, who is it? Bloomberg, I think, keeps saying, like, oh, well, you know, they're lucky to have jobs. But I keep thinking, who said it?
Like the horses are lucky to have jobs?
Are lucky to have jobs. But a job is a human construct. That would be like saying those slaves are lucky to have jobs. You know, if they weren't picking my cotton, they would be executed.
Yeah, well, that's like what just recently they were talking about the pay discrepancy between men and women. And, you know, someone was arguing that, well, when you look at higher up women, it's really not a huge difference. It's like a 10% pay difference. And I'm like, I want that 10%.
10%
is that okay with you? I want that 10%.
You know, one of the things we haven't really mentioned, which I think is important, is just what makes it so inhumane. Aside from the fact that there's no pasture,
right?
The horses are prey animals. They're not predators, and they have a tendency to spook. If there's a stimuli that frightens them, and when a horse spooks, he or she bolts.
Yeah.
There's no way to control all of the stimuli in Manhattan.
Right.
Cars honking, sirens, potholes, even just like a feather blown by spook a horse. Well, when a horse spooks on a pasture, it's okay. When a horse spooks in midtown traffic, all hell breaks loose. Also, they're standing on 59th Street with no shade in the baking sun all summer long. The water troughs are turned off during the winter, and they rely on the possibility of the drivers opening a fire hydrant to provide them with water, you know, or else the pipes,
which is illegal.
And they walk in the snow.
They live in multi-story warehouse buildings where the stalls are too small to allow them to lie down with their legs stretched out.
Didn't realize
their REM sleep.
Horses do have to sleep. They can sleep standing up, just like I can.
Get a nap
if I'm on a long table waiting shift working a double, I can sleep standing up.
Oh yeah, I fell asleep behind the bar once bartending. I fell asleep standing up.
Yeah, but I
wasn't restful.
But we were in comfortable shoes when we did it too. I mean, I didn't know they have to sleep laying down to get the sleep they need.
They get their REM sleep. Yeah. According to veterinarians who I interviewed at Blinders, the asphalt affecting their legs, the hard pavement causes leg injuries and lameness.
And if you think about the way a horse's shoe is, I mean, like, there's no padding, there's nothing soft in there. That's intended for running on pasture, running on grass or dirt. But when you think about, I mean, just imagine it, you're going outside wearing metal shoes and you're walking on concrete all day. I mean, my shins are sore. My shins are sore just thinking about it.
Yeah, they could provide them with cushions between the shoe and their, but they don't.
Yeah.
I always also wonder if the people who operate the carriages, the drivers, do they have any kind of training on how to take care of horses? Like, if they have any idea what they're doing? I feel like they don't look like they know what they're doing.
It's funny that you should say that. When I was making Blinders, I managed to have lunch with a horse-drawn carriage driver who I had befriended, and I sat down and I told him what I was doing, and he said to me, a lot of the he came from Chicago where he was a horse-drawn carriage driver, and he said when he got to New York, he was scared about driving a horse-drawn carriage in the streets of New York. And that other people had no experience at all. And I can tell you, when I took the horse-drawn carriage operators course to learn more about the industry as part of my research, nobody had experience driving a horse-drawn carriage. This is not the place where you start.
Even the people teaching.
There were no teachers. It was videos. It was the Department of Health putting videos in, VHS tapes from like 30 years ago about riding a horse-drawn carriage in rural England.
Oh my God!
Wow.
I was stunned.
If you had questions, who did you ask?
There was nobody there who knew. There was a woman who was like an administrator for the Department of Health. Yeah. And she walked in with a bag of McDonald's. Literally, she put in a VHS tape that was completely irrelevant and disappeared.
What if you don't speak English as a first language?
Not only...
Seriously?
I asked in Spanish. I asked a lot of the guys who were in the class with me were South American and did not speak English. And I asked them in Spanish on the day of the written test. I said, if you don't speak if you don't speak English or read English, how are you taking this test right now? And they had no reason to find me suspicious. And they just couldn't answer. And I've seen them in the streets. I don't understand how they even pass the class.
Wow.
It is so. This business is.
It must be so easy. It must be it must just be. That's crazy.
Well, I passed.
Yeah.
So I believe I have no business.
The other thing that I didn't realize is that these people don't even have to have driver's licenses. You assume that, they're driving in New York traffic. Did you know this? They don't have to have driver's licenses.
I don't know if that's up for a possible change or not, but yeah, as of the last time I checked, that was not a requirement.
Wow.
Yeah. And they talk on their mobile phones, they go through red lights, they go U-turns, and the NYPD just turns a blind eye.
Yeah, I was in a cab one day, I was in the left lane, and there was, there's the two lane, okay, well, how am I going to say this? I was in a two-lane side of the street, and the other side of the street is also two lanes. I'm on the inner lane, closer to the center of the road. And there's a horse carriage on the right side of our car, like alongside our cab, and they make a U-turn in front of my cab to go the other way. If my cab driver... thank God my cab driver was not talking on the phone or distracted, as they always are. And thank God we slowed down, because if we weren't paying attention... we would have slammed right into this horse.
It's happened God knows how many times.
Yeah. Well, I think the average New Yorker sees that happen all the time. I just, it's funny. It was a few months ago, and I saw there was a horse carriage in Times Square. I was on 8th and 42nd, which to me seems like a strange place for them. But the horse tripped on a pothole, right? Oh. And it was really scary for me as a person standing on the street. And, I think people you see that around.
Yeah. You're pretty used to it.
Yeah. It was. It really scared me. And I tweeted about that, and I got I'm not kidding. I got 50 followers from that tweet. Yeah. So it surprises me how many people are really passionate about it.
I'm sure you got some hate or some.
No, it was all support. All everybody, all the followers I got on Twitter were they're really I think that the issue has a lot of support.
Okay,
that's what I'm saying.
I find that there's a lot of internet trolls out there on behalf of the horse carriage industry. That if you talk negatively about it, you will get people
That's just the industry people, though.
Yeah,
there's two people, whatever, keyboard warriors.
That was
in the industry that's their job is to.
Yeah, that wasn't my experience though, and I have to say that I feel like I was because I tweet about this kind of stuff all the time, right?
Yeah.
And I was so surprised that was the tweet that got such positive reaction. I got like all these retweets and I got all these followers, and I think it's because people are on board to banning the industry. People do want to give it their support, which so that's what I want to talk about with you next. Is I want to talk about that movement and how basically I want to talk about NYCLASS and their role in this movement and I know because I know that you're like the most knowledgeable person.
And I think for a lot of people, for myself anyway, I remember when I was learning about this, I Googled, and the first thing I find is NYCLASS.org or com or, and I remember emailing Donny and saying like, awesome, I want to get behind this. I just emailed NYCLASS and I got on their mailing list and I'm thinking maybe I can like team up with them and help them out. I think it's for a lot of people, NYCLASS has actually done a great job of getting celebrities on board and getting the word out about the fact that we want to stop this.
Yeah, I mean, I got on the NYCLASS mailing list standing in line at the Vegetarian Food Festival. A woman came up to me and said, we're trying to help the horses up by Central Park. Do you want to get on our mailing list? I was like, of course. And then that's how I got on their mailing list.
So I think for your average activist or just person who cares about horses who wants to do something about it, they will at some point stumble across NYCLASS. It's usually the first thing that they see if they want to do something about it. So you have some experience.
And it's so sad to me because NYCLASS has been a detriment to the movement to ban horse-drawn carriages. They've used all of this money and power and celebrity, and in the end they've hurt the cause. And the reason is because the founder of NYCLASS, who is a real estate developer, has a conflict of interest. He had the founder of NYCLASS is the CEO of a company called Edison Properties. They have an outdoor parking lot in Christine Quinn's district that they wanted to convert into a condo, and that required rezoning. And Christine Quinn calls the shots when it comes to rezoning in New York City, particularly in her district. And he became one of her biggest fundraisers. He's a campaign bundler for her. And he's helping become mayor the very person who's killed all efforts to take these horses out of harm's way. So because his development, which could be worth $1 billion, was more important to him than banning horse-drawn carriages, that conflict of interest has compromised the fight. He's actually been promoting within the movement Christine Quinn as an advocate for animals, confusing the animal rights community because everybody thought she was the animal's biggest enemy, which of course she is.
Now, Christine Quinn, of course, is the New York City Council speaker and running to be our next mayor.
Yes.
So she could be our next Michael Bloomberg.
Right. She could be, it's sort of like Bloomberg's fourth term, is how
basically.
Yeah, no kidding.
She's just Bloomberg's puppet.
Okay. Now, how is it that Christine Quinn is involved in this? Like, why does she have a say over what someone else wants to do? Like, why does this guy have to back down because of her?
So Christine Quinn, as Speaker of the City Council, she has hundreds of millions of dollars at her disposal to use to control the city's legislative agenda. So if you're a council member and you vote with her, you get rewarded with funds for your district and your pet organizations. If you vote against her, you get penalized.
It's
and
so
council
corrupt.
members are terrified of Christine Quinn. So, and why that's relevant here is because back in 2007, a New York City council member, a brave council member named Tony Avella, he's now a state senator, introduced a bill to ban horse-drawn carriages. When I was meeting with council members to ask for their support of this bill, one after another conveyed the same basic message to me, some of them discreetly because they didn't want to get getting back to Quinn, but that they support the bill to ban horse-drawn carriages, but they would never vote for it because Christine Quinn was opposed to it. And that's how much power she has over the city's legislative agenda.
So basically, now, if they vote for it, they don't get money.
Well, they don't want to get blacklisted by somebody with power.
Yeah.
Over the horses.
Yeah.
You know, unless each council member had 10,000 constituents saying, you're going to be voted out of office if you don't support the bill to ban horse-drawn carriages, they're not going to support it. They're not going to go out on a limb and go against Christine Quinn on behalf of horses. And so that Quinn effectively killed that bill in committee. Now, how this is related to NYCLASS is because as the head of City Council, Christine Quinn also has a final stamp of approval or denial on real estate developments. Well, as I said, the founder of NYCLASS has a development in her district that could be worth $1 billion, a condo, and he needed to get her approval. Well, in order to do that, he has to shower her with money, which is why he became a campaign bundler for her, and he has to do whatever she says. One of the things she said to him is, get the animal community to support me. So here, the person who has done more to hurt animals in New York City than anybody in my memory is being promoted by an alleged animal advocate within the animal community. The whole thing is so surreal. It's so nuanced and confusing, though, that most people don't understand. They just see NYCLASS and celebrities and we're against horse-drawn carriages, and they assume the best.
How is he promoting her to people who know about animals? And I would assume, you know, if you're an animal rights activist or if you're passionate about animals, you try to stay in the know about what's going on. So how is he able to get people to support her?
I'll tell you. I'll give you 3 examples. Back in 2010, Quinn was, a target of animal rights protests, and she said to the head of NYCLASS, his name is Steve Nislik from Edison Properties. She said to him, "I'm going to give you 2 bills, an anti-chaining bill and a dog licensing bill." She said, and she fast-tracked them through the city council overnight. These are absolutely bills that are meaningless to the animal rights community. Mm-hmm. And he used those bills as a way to try to stop me from protesting against Christine Quinn.
How's that?
And then berated me when I said, we're not stopping a campaign against Quinn. Anyway, it's more than just animal folks. We're protesting against her. So when Quinn fast-tracked those bills through the city council, Steve Nislik, NYCLASS, sent an email to their 70,000 members, or however many it was at the time, promoting these animal rights victories that Christine Quinn had just championed.
Well, now, the tethering bill I believe it says that you can't chain your dog outside for more than, like, if you stop into Starbucks, you can't leave your dog.
No, that's not it at all.
No?
It's you can't chain your dog for more than 3 hours in a 24-hour period. But or something like that. Mm-hmm. I don't exactly know the details, but even at the press conference where Quinn announced this bill and showed pictures of chained dogs, probably not even from New York City, she said that the law is unenforceable.
She said that?
Yeah, it is unenforceable. That's just what I was going to say when you described it. I said, you can't even enforce that.
It's unenforceable. Somebody has to watch for a 24-hour period a dog in someone's backyard. There's no city employees who are going to do that. The ASPCA is not going to do that. In fact, my friend, who's an attorney who lives in Queens, had a neighbor who was chaining their dog to the fence. And my friend called the ASPCA, and they said, we can't do anything about it. So what's the point of having a law? It's not even a deterrent.
Yeah.
Anyway,
it's just for show. It's just a publicity stunt.
It's a publicity stunt so that she could paint herself as an advocate for animals.
Right.
But what's worse is that in 2011, I don't know if you remember this, she fast-tracked a bill through the city council that overturned the law mandating animal shelters in all 5 boroughs.
Right.
Because the Bronx and Queens don't have full-service, city-funded animal shelters. The Bronx and Queens are as big as some states.
But didn't she give, like, a bunch of money to the shelters that they did already have to sort of enrich them and bring them up to...
That was the argument that she used. That was how she positioned the bill. Look what we're doing for animals. We're putting a few $1 million into the shelter system over a period of several years.
Instead of adding shelters.
It was pennies. But the way she had her press conference and all the publicity, you could think that she was a champion for the city's homeless animals when she's their biggest enemy.
Yeah.
And she buried the news about the fact that what this bill really did was eliminate the law mandating shelters in every borough. And the reason she fast-tracked that bill through the city council is because a rescue organization was suing the city for not fulfilling its legal obligation to open those shelters.
Mm-hmm. And what would that have cost the city?
NYCLASS endorsed the bill. They didn't ask their permission of their 80,000 members. By that time, they probably had 80,000 members. They just sent an email around and just congratulating Christine Quinn on this important victory, which was a huge betrayal.
Not a victory. Yeah.
And at the city council hearing where Quinn introduced this bill, it was passed and set within minutes. because everybody voted in favor of it, she thanked NYCLASS and Steve Nislik specifically for their support on this bill.
Wow.
Did he get the permission? First of all, NYCLASS is an organization that's supposed to be fighting for the horses. Since when did they become an expert on shelter issues?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just so deceiving. And so it's this campaign to help Christine Quinn get elected mayor in exchange for her support of a real estate development in her district.
Now, there are
where do the horses fit into this?
Yeah, seriously.
There are some animal rights activists who I do not question their dedication to animals. They are vegan. They are, they're out on the hack line protesting more often than I am. And, some of them seem to think, but don't you think that if we, do this and Christine Quinn does become mayor, then once she's on the inside and once she's the mayor, don't you think she'll be in a better position to help us?
She has killed every meaningful animal protection bill introduced since she became speaker. If people are trying to get her elected with the hope that maybe she cut a deal with the head of NYCLASS to phase out the horse-drawn carriage rides, then they're delusional. We cannot rely on a possible deal made between a crooked politician and a crooked real estate developer.
Yeah, I also want to, so let's talk about the fact that NYCLASS does not support a ban, because I think that that's something that a lot of people that support them don't understand, that they don't support a ban. Because they have like this other bill with the car thing that they want to do. Yeah,
you're talking about the state bill to ban horse carriages, but the only bill
Senator Avella's bill.
Yeah,
who we love.
Whenever I look up horse carriage, we love Tony. Yeah, if you're a big fat vegan radio listener, you already probably took our suggestions and went online and emailed your senators.
Oh yes.
And whatnot about the bill.
Sign the petition.
Yes, and but the thing is, when you look online about when I talk to other horse carriage activists about the bill, they all seem to say, oh yeah, the Intro 86A, they all talk about this city-wide bill to replace the carriage horses with electric cars. That seems to be the only bill that people know about. I don't think a lot of people know about this.
Because it's the one that has all the press.
Because that's the only one that NYCLASS seems to be talking about.
But just as an aside, Christine Quinn yesterday in the New York Times, or today's New York Times, there's an article in which she states that she opposes the electric cars.
Really?
So we've put all of our...
Today.
Right here, sitting in this newspaper.
And that's the bill that everyone's like, that's the bill. That's the bill that's going to save the horses.
This is new. This just in. What?
Should I just quickly see if I can read it to you?
Oh my God.
I am in disbelief.
This is the gray lady, baby.
Quinn rebukes carriage industry.
No.
What? Oh my God. Look at that.
So now, I can't believe you guys don't know this story.
I don't.
This has been all over Facebook for the past since last night.
Yeah, I'm sure.
If you haven't been on Facebook today or whatever online, so Martina Navratilova,
who I'm distantly related to,
cool, who on behalf of PETA sent a letter to Christine Quinn, asking her to support a ban on horse-drawn carriages, not only on the grounds of animal cruelty, but also because horse-drawn carriage drivers are notoriously homophobic. Activists got on video footage of a carriage driver calling...
the Dyke March, right?
The Dykes and niggers and all of these horrible slurs caught on video.
Yeah.
And, Quinn has known about these slurs for years. We've been sending her videos and other documentation for years about the homophobia, but she's never addressed it. She never cared, but she has to care now, or pretend to care, because the New York Times contacted her. Well, it was in this article that, or at least on the online version, that she stated that she does not support... Oh, you know where it was? It was in the letter to Martina Navratilova. It's not in this article. Okay. So it's online on the New York Times website.
Okay.
And the article is called "After Driver Slurs, Quinn Rebukes Carriage Industry." But she is their biggest advocate. She actually used this story She has betrayed the animals. She has betrayed the gay community on so many occasions. But she's turned that betrayal into a victory, a PR victory for herself in this story.
Wow!
By saying that this homophobia is unacceptable. She's known about this homophobia for years. She didn't care. In any case, the electric vintage car is a delay tactic. New York class got $250,000 from the ASPCA in 2008.
Oh my gosh.
That is 4 years ago for a prototype of the electric vintage car. We're in 2012, there's no prototype, and they're still sending out emails asking for contributions for a prototype. When is this thing going to be available?
Yeah. I think that's so important. I feel like people don't know that. Like, they think it exists already somewhere, and it's like...
Well, they have this little scale model of it, like a little Tonka
like a
car.
toy.
Yeah. And
That's not a prototype, though, to actually... Because the bill cannot go through until we actually have the cars.
They don't even know what they're voting on if there's no cars.
I won't lie.
Where are they going to get millions of dollars to produce an entire fleet?
Yeah.
I'm not the smartest guy in the room. I didn't know that prototype means like a working model, the real thing,
right.
The first one off. And I think some people, I mean, I was one of them. I see this little scale model and I thought, oh, they have a prototype now. They have a little model and everything. Not really. Prototype means
well, but for the city to put money behind it, for it to be a reality where we remove horses and put in these cars, which, you know, in theory, I think sounds great, lovely, whatever.
Yeah, I wouldn't
for
mind.
it to be a reality, we have to have the cars and be able to do it.
We got to see one in action.
Not just a prototype, an entire fleet.
They have to have all of them.
How many?
Paying for this.
Yeah. How many horses are in the fleet? Like, okay, so we currently have how many horses?
There are anywhere between 200 and 300 horses. You know, the numbers change all the time.
And how many are out? Like, how many?
At any given time, there can only be. By law, there should only be 68 carriages on the streets because that's how many medallions are on the book.
And so how much is it for a electric car? We're talking like 30,000, 50,000.
No, hundreds
for
of
an
thousands
electric
of dollars.
car?
The prototype itself, the most recent price tag on the prototype is $400,000. P.S. The founder of NYCLASS stated in a public forum that he himself was going to pay for the prototype. Now he's gotten at least $450,000 from the ASPCA. And there's still no prototype.
And no one's working on it. No one's making it.
They're still sending out requests for money.
For $5 contributions.
In the meantime, they've got a staff. They've got 2 full-time employees. It's ridiculous.
Wait, there's 68 horses out on
68 medallions, which means that at any time there can only
be... times $400,000.
$2 million.
That's $2 million.
$2.7 million.
No, that's way more than $2 million.
Wait, no.
$27.2 million.
But I don't know.
That's $27.2 million?
Yeah.
But let's just say the cars are $175,000, which was the prototype might be more than once they do scale up production. Let's just say they're $175,000, which is what they originally estimated. $175,000. That's something like $12 million. $12.5 million. NYCLASS in 4 years and with hundreds of thousands of dollars in donations hasn't been able to produce a prototype. Where are they going to get the money to produce?
But on what planet are we supposed to believe that it's going to happen if it hasn't happened at this point? That's how I feel about it. I feel like it's all lies. It's like they're just like completely lying to everybody. How am I supposed to believe you? You've done nothing to show me that you're actually interested in making change, that you're actually going to do something. I'm so furious with them because I see people that, I really respect, like celebrities who are vegan and
Chelsea Handler.
And they're going to their fundraisers and it just infuriates me. They're giving them money. It's like they don't even know. People don't even know.
If this is a delay tactic, the next mayoral election is this coming November 2012.
No. The primary, which is the one that matters, is September 2013.
September 2013.
So that's a year and a month or two.
So when would Christine Quinn be elected mayor if she won this thing?
So let's just say that the primary ends up being the general election because right now there's no Republican candidate. Now she would start serving January of 2014. So if you're an animal person in New York City or a human rights person or anybody who cares about ethics, that means that we would be stuck with Quinn from 2014 to 2018 or even 2022, or she extends term limits again in 2026.
Yep, which Bloomberg did.
Oh my God.
Can you imagine? If Quinn has 3 terms, she'll be in office until 2026.
I hadn't thought of it that way.
That's crazy,
And the
right?
thing is, if this is just a delay tactic, then who's to say that once she takes office, anything is going to get done?
No, why would she?
This is just a huge publicity stunt, and it is unfortunately, in my opinion, there are just thousands of horse like horse activists and supporters who are completely wrapped up in it and have no idea what they're contributing to.
New York Class has shifted the public discourse from banning the industry,
which they used to be for a ban,
to replacing horse-drawn carriages with electric vintage cars that don't exist.
Yes,
and there's no sign of them on the horizon.
And you're reminding me of what I want to say is because I sent some stuff to Jamie Kilstein from Citizen Radio, and they ended up talking about it on the show, which is great.
Yeah.
I said, but I sent some stuff to him. He had no idea they'd even contacted him to, like work with them because he's pretty famous. And then also you were talking to him too, I know. And everything on the New York Class page.
That's because Jamie Kilstein and I are tight.
He's awesome.
We hang.
But if you send New York Class, because I'm saying this because he did it too, and then if you send New York Class anything about the Senator Avella's bill about the ban, or if you tweet them about it or you put it on their Facebook page, they either don't respond or they delete it.
Yeah, I honest to God, I just thought, hey, this is awesome. There's a bill at the state level. They're talking about this citywide bill, okay, but at a state level, Christine Quinn could do nothing about that because that goes over her head. She's just the mayor of a little city. Oh God, no. She's
not the mayor. She's not the mayor.
She's just, okay. Christine Quinn is just the speaker of a little city, New York City. If this happened at a state level, she could do nothing about it. So I would think that people would be thrilled that there's a state bill because it's the fastest way.
It's more complicated than that.
Of course.
It must be, because when I posted on the NYCLASS Facebook page, like, hey everyone, there is a bill, because they have 85,000 members now at NYCLASS. Can you imagine if we had 85,000 people pushing for this statewide bill? And then I looked for the post that I posted later on, and I couldn't find it. So I just thought, maybe I didn't post it right. So I posted it again, and sure enough, some people started liking it, some people started commenting, and a few hours later, it's deleted. And finally, I emailed Ali Feldman, the one of the heads of NYCLASS, and I said, hey, I keep getting these posts keep getting removed. I forget exactly what I said, but she was like,
why are you deleting my effort to support a ban on horse carriages?
She was livid, and she said something about call my office and we will discuss in private what my stance is. And I just, to be honest, I just said, look, I don't have an interest in learning what your stance is on why you refuse to talk about this bill. I have an interest in banning the industry.
Because I am interested in helping the horses. Yeah. I'm interested in helping the animals.
You have to understand, first of all, the employees of New York Class are just paid mouthpieces of this real estate developer.
Of course.
So,
and they're the ones deleting you.
I think the important thing here that we all need to remember, first of all, the ASPCA and New York Class are part of the problem, not part of the solution. And it just makes our job as grassroots activists who have the right objective in mind, which is a ban, it makes our jobs harder. But the most important thing that I think animal rights activists can do in New York City is ensure that Christine Quinn is not elected mayor.
Right.
Because she alone killed the bill to ban horse-drawn carriages. If she didn't kill that bill, if she let council members vote the way they wanted, that bill would have passed. Because most of these council members would support a ban on horse-drawn carriages.
And because citizens write in about it all the time.
Yeah, I've had council members tell me I've gotten more letters about the horse-drawn carriage ban than any other issue since I've gotten in public office. That's how mobilized our movement has been and how strong the movement has been, but we're no competition for Christine Quinn.
Yeah.
And so that's why people in the animal community who have been deceived by New York Class, who have been basically promoting Christine Quinn, although now they're starting to send, letters to her to show sort of this veneer of going after her. But we have to band together as a community. The stakes are so high, and I don't think people in the animal community truly understand just how destructive she will be if she's elected mayor to the animals.
And as an aside, I was talking about NYCLASS, whether they support this ban or not. They keep having these public rallies on the steps of City Hall, and I went down to one of them because I'm like, what are we gathering to celebrate? The whole ceremony was to celebrate that we had reached 50,000 members, or 50,000 people signed up for the mailing list, and that now we are going to unveil, that we're going to go for 75,000. Kathy Najimy was there, who I love love Kathy and Jamie, and I wanted to like, you know, celebrate this, but I'm like, wait, we aren't announcing anything. We aren't announcing any news. We aren't announcing any new information we can go on, any new strategies to fight this. And so at the end, they had a sort of Q&A, and there was just me and this one like really like not too bright reporter girl who kind of backed down with her question, and I just asked them like very practically. I said, look, if we aren't able to raise the money to get these electric cars, like if these electric cars turn out to not be a feasible option, do we have a plan B? Like, if the cars fall through, will NYCLASS then go back to supporting a ban like they used to? And Kathy and Jamie interrupted my question to say, look, if the electric cars don't work out, I'll pull the carriages myself. Ha 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 ha. Everyone's laughing. Everyone's like, oh, woo, we really, you know. And I kind of like slowly raised my hand back up, and I'm like, I don't want to challenge Kathy and Jamie. I love her husband, Dan, the Dan Band. They're awesome. Check them out. And I'm like, that doesn't answer my question though. Like, so if this doesn't work out, will we support a ban? And I forget who it was, Carly or Allie, finally stepped back up to the microphone, and I could tell she didn't want to say this on camera because NY1 is there, but she's like, no, we do not support a ban on the horse carriage industry, which I'm just shocked.
You said it outright.
She said, no, we don't. She did not elaborate. She wasn't happy to say it, but she's like, no, we don't support a ban. And I was shocked. And the thing is, I had all these angry NYCLASS members afterwards were coming up to me like, why did you ask that? Why? And I'm like, I'm not asking anything unusual here. Aren't we all talking about banning this industry?
The people who were at that press conference, both standing behind the speakers, those are a lot of ASPCA employees. These aren't like grassroots activists like us.
Well, the woman who was yelling at me after this for asking it, she wasn't even. She was like the most avid. She was the woman.
There.
She was the woman that got everyone to start chanting. Like, there was one woman who you could tell was like, people took their cues from this woman. She came up to me and we start talking, and for a little while, like the way that she was talking, like, well, don't you think it would be better if we only had like 20 horses, or don't you think it would be better if the law said they couldn't leave the park? And I'm like, well, it would be better if we weren't exploiting animals. And then I started to realize, wait a second. She made some argument about like, yeah, well, you know, your iPad was made by Chinese, and I'm like, I don't have an
I hate that.
I can't afford an iPad, and secondly, I don't like buy. Well,
we're not here to talk about iPads anyway.
Right.
Yeah, no, we're here to talk about the horses.
But I realized this woman was not even vegan. And I mean, like, hey, you can be a vegetarian, I guess, and fight to ban carriage horses, whatever. I mean, but this woman was not even an animal rights activist, not even vegan. And when I mentioned the whole, like, well, I'm vegan, she started knocking that. And when she distracted the vegan argument by talking about iPads, like, well, your iPad is made by cruelty.
Yeah, because human suffering, not blah, blah.
I said, I don't consume 3 to 4 iPads a day, you know, but every single time I have a meal, that's a chance to do something.
But the thing is, that's not the issue. It's not the issue. That's the same thing when people say carrots are alive. You know, it's like, oh my God, go fuck yourself. I can't even deal with this. But that's the same thing. And honestly, I don't think you need to be, like, I want everyone to be vegan, but you don't have to be vegan to protest horse carriages. In my opinion, if you're protesting them, I think it's great. If you're behind a ban, I think it's great. I think that everyone should do whatever they can. But, I mean, ultimately, they don't support a ban, and that's the problem. It's this, and I just, it's so crazy to me that they don't support a ban and that they're not giving this bill all their power. Because also, this is another thing you made me think of when Senator Avella's bill was up, they were going to do a big press conference at Central Park. And we were like, we're going to go. Let's go to that. And then, I'm not kidding, the same day that I called Ben, I was like, we're going to go support Tony because we love Tony. I got an email from NYCLASS that said they were having an event the same day in a different part of the park at a different time. Like, literally, they were taking the horse activist people who were interested in it and taking them away from the press conference about the ban.
They weren't at the exact same time, but it was like very, very close. And it was just a very last minute thing.
It was brilliant because then people think they're going to the thing. They think they're going.
They think they're going to the thing, and they're polarized to all go to this one ban. It's ridiculous.
I know.
I mean, can you imagine if all of the activists who think that they're supporting an organization that has the horse's best interests as a priority, and all the celebrities that they've brought along, if they knew the truth about the conflict of interest of the founder of NYCLASS, the community celebrities, we've all been used to advance the real estate interests.
So people can make money and get elected.
It's just, the whole thing is surreal.
Well, and Donny, you wrote an excellent piece about that where people can actually, I actually read it myself. It's a long read.
It is a long one, but it's a good one.
And you know me, I don't like to read. It's why I do not like to read. It hurts my eyeballs. It's why I learn things through YouTube, not through Google. But I sat down and read the whole thing, and it was airtight. You had things footnoted, backed up, fact-checked, and it was a very long, can I use the word expose? It was like an expose
sure.
on exactly how New York Class and Steve Nislik and Christine Quinn, how they've
co-opted the movement to advance their respective interests at the expense of the horses.
Yeah. And where can people read that? That thing that
BlindersTheMovie.com. It's the first story on the homepage.
I'll do show notes, and I'll link to all of Donny's stuff.
And I'll do my signature BlindersTheMovie.com. .com. It'll be in the show notes, yeah.
But we'll put it all in the show notes, and then I'll put some of your YouTube stuff in there too, because Donny also has great YouTube videos.
Yeah.
It's like, can you imagine also if New York Class harnessed the power of their 85,000 members, or however many it is right now, to actually vote Christine Quinn out of office?
Yeah.
Because the other candidates support a ban on horse-drawn carriages.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We know that. Several candidates have come out in support of a ban. If 85,000 people, or a tiny fraction of them, hit the streets and educated New York City voters about all of the reasons why Quinn should be voted out of office, the corruption, the human rights violations, then we could actually help these horses. But instead, New York Class is helping the horse's biggest enemy get elected.
Now, here's one of the things that makes that difficult for some people, myself included, is that I am a man of the homosexual persuasion. And
are you?
Yes. Yes. Let me just take this wig off and reveal myself. And so
I have to go.
Many of my friends, they all support Christine Quinn.
Oh, yeah.
And, I'm not, I'm trying to talk about all this political stuff, and, I don't even get the terms right. I'm not the most politically minded person. I wish I were, but it goes beyond my understanding sometimes. But as I understand, I am one of those gays that you tell me that this politician is gay and I'm going to want to vote for them. And I feel like, I can't speak for all gay people, but I feel like, I'm saying these are my feelings, this is how I feel like a lot of gay people are going to vote for the gay candidate.
Well, I totally relate to that, because gay rights to me is one of the most important issues in our time. And a lot of times, I used to blindly support Mayor Bloomberg because he's pro-gay marriage until I learned about him. And then I was like, oh my God, what am I crazy? He does all these things I hate. He does all these things I'm completely against. But that's the thing. You don't have to agree with everything a politician says. You know what I'm saying? That's what people think. They're like, oh, it's the Democrat. Oh, she's gay. Oh, I'm in. Oh, she's not a Democrat, though, right? Or is she a Democrat?
She's a Democrat, but she might as well be a Republican.
Oh, she's a woman. Exactly.
She's a woman, she's Irish, and she's gay. And these three things, apparently, we've never had as mayor. And so people from those communities really rally behind her.
And people don't want to spend their time doing research about, her. I think she's scandalous beyond animals. She's done all these totally corrupt, crazy things that the average New Yorker has no idea, doesn't know about.
The only thing people know about, though they might not necessarily tie it to Quinn, is that she overturned term limits after New Yorkers voted twice to keep them. At our protests, and we protest Quinn constantly, we have people from the animal rights community, human rights, good government, LGBT people. The one thing people respond to the most is, oh, she's the one who overturned term limits. We have all these posters about corruption and human rights. They're not responding to that.
That was a lot of press, that one. I think that's why, because I was reading about that a lot when that was happening. I think that people know about it. People know about what there's press about, and that's just the truth.
People make the assumption that a female gay Democrat is somehow ethical. But you have,
because she must be. She has a vagina and she's gay.
Doesn't that make you a good person, having a big gay vagina? Oh my God, as a quick aside here, do you know what I decided? The gayest moment in the history of the world, what do you think it was?
I don't know.
My friend Vito actually guessed it. And it was, he guessed it on the tee, and I just had it in my head.
Wait, can you give us a hint?
is involving a woman.
Is it when Margaret Cho and Louis Van Amstel danced in rainbow costumes under rainbow confetti on Dancing with the Stars? Because that's up there. That's up there.
That is nowhere near. That is whole wheat grains compared to kale. When I tell you, that is quite gay. There was never a gayer moment in the world than the moment that Judy Garland gave birth to Liza Minnelli. There was a time in our history when Liza Minnelli was wearing Judy Garland as a necklace.
Oh, this is gross.
That's the gayest moment in history. Anyway, if she came out head first,
I see. Okay.
there was a moment when Judy Garland's vagina was wrapped around Liza Minnelli's neck.
I think Judy had a C. I'm going to look it up.
I think Judy was probably out for it, but
image search of that.
I love it. And if it's not there, I'm going to Photoshop something. But here's what I'm saying: just because Christine Quinn is gay, just because I'm gay, that does not make me Mr. Gay Rights advocate. I always go back to my friend Melissa Kleckner. She's a fellow activist with Queer Rising. She was arrested.
She's straight.
She's straight.
Married, yeah.
She's straight, married, has a kid. She is one. If I had to list like the top 5 gay rights activists that I know, Melissa Kleckner, a heterosexual vagina-owning woman,
good for her,
eats, sleeps, and breathes gay rights. She does more for gay rights than most gay people I know.
I'm sure.
So to assume that just because Christine Quinn is gay makes her the good choice for us, and secondly, wasn't there another gay candidate that was up for election to be Christine Quinn's position?
In this district. So there are 51 districts in New York City. Okay. Right now, Christine Quinn is the Speaker of the City Council, but she also has a West Side district, which is where we are right now.
Yeah.
And back in 2009, when she was running for what many would say is an illegal third term, one of the other candidates in the race was a lesbian who happens to be an animal rights activist and supported our position on banning horse-drawn carriages. Her name is Yetta Kurland.
Who's also a vegan.
But what was interesting is that NYCLASS, the head of NYCLASS, didn't make campaign contributions to Yetta Kurland, who was on our side. He was giving thousands of dollars to Christine Quinn.
Because she is going to affect his income.
Right.
So Christine Quinn actually crowded out an opportunity for another gay politician who actually is on the record as being very pro-animal.
And she's just progressive. She is a Democrat, and she's honest.
And you know what, Yetta Kurland, when we were arrested for Queer Rising for blocking traffic for marriage equality, Yetta was the one in court with us. That was the first time I think I'd ever met her. I'd always heard about her, but the first day I ever met her was the day that she just showed up in court to walk me up to the judge and be like, blah blah blah. Okay, we just got you an ACD, an acquittal, dismissal, whatever. Pro bono shows up to help some grassroots activists fight for their rights. Christine Quinn was not there.
No, she's turned her back on the gay community time and again when it's helped her politically, when it's been politically expedient. But the gay community in general isn't familiar with those nuances, those sort of discrete events.
Well, in the gay community, turning your back is not always a bad thing.
Yeah, they just see her wedding, the pictures from her wedding that she just had.
It wasn't a political event, even though she invited the U.S. senators and all.
I know, Senator Gillibrand,
who she's not friends with.
Yeah.
You know, it's ridiculous. Everything is a political.
Well, that's definitely to make her. That's definitely because that gets press. Pictures of wedding dresses that gets press.
Yeah.
It's like, look, I am gay, which means I'm so liberal. And I'm on your team.
Or ethical.
Yeah.
Gay people are no more or less ethical than anybody else.
And one of the things that I first learned about Christine Quinn, because I just assumed that she's gay, that means she's good for the gays. But when I first started, researching the horse carriage thing, if you YouTube horse carriage, it will show you so many videos with Donny Moss's name in it, and that's how I met you, Donny, because I saw this video that he posted, Christine Quinn Behind the Smile, and it goes into just her record, and it talked about how, I guess you can go to YouTube and look it up to get all the details about it.
Yeah, I'll link to this.
Someone from my hometown, from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, was visiting New York, or maybe lives here, and he was falsely entrapped and arrested for prostitution, which he was not a prostitute, he was not soliciting anyone. But he was arrested. This happened in Christine Quinn's district, and she did nothing, and she said nothing.
She tried to silence these guys.
Because
if she had spoken out against the NYPD Vice Squad, which is what she should have done, because these poor guys were being falsely arrested for prostitution, if she had done, she didn't want to speak out against the NYPD Vice Squad because that was less politically expedient for her than simply ignoring the gays. Because she knows she has the gay vote, so why does she have to go out on a limb with the NYPD?
Yeah.
It's just a betrayal.
So yeah, it's just really, I think it's just another example of the corruption that I think, especially our generation, is really, really realizing and speaking up out against. And I think it's so awesome that you are so vocal about it and you provide so much exposure on the issue. It's like really inspiring and really cool.
Thank you. These are tough battles.
Yeah.
We need the activists to come together to vote Quinn out, or else we're all going to regret it.
Yeah.
So, Donny, thank you so much for your time and for educating us all about this. I think most of the people listening to this want to help the horses, want to get the horses off the city streets, want to see an outright ban on the horse carriage industry. What can people listening to this, what can people do?
In my opinion, the best thing anyone can do who cares about banning horse-drawn carriages is join the campaign to vote Christine Quinn out of public office. Because if she's out, the horses will most likely be banned because the other candidates support a ban.
Okay.
And know that by joining the campaign against Quinn, they're not only going to help animals, they're going to help a lot of people in New York City who have been betrayed by her. We don't need a corrupt politician serving as our mayor for the next 4 or 8 or 12 years. So it's a good fight. It's a difficult fight, and we need to come together as a community.
And how can people take those actions? How can people, like, I'm just one person, I don't know a lot about politics. How can I fight Christine Quinn and get her out of office?
Join the protests. We leaflet. We hold up posters. You
guys, is there like a website people can get into that?
Good question. There's a website which has information called VoteChristineQuinnOut.com.
Okay.
But also, the easiest way to just get on a list is to email me at DonnyMoss@me.com.
Great.
So if you could add that to the...
Yeah, absolutely.
And then there's my documentary about Quinn called Christine Quinn Behind the Smile, about her record and her animal record. Christine Quinn Blocks All Animal Bills is on YouTube.
Okay.
And there's another one called Christine Quinn Lies to the Public about the horse-drawn carriage bill in particular.
Yeah, I was going to say the other thing that the average person can do is share these videos on Facebook and Twitter, and literally, because then people watch them, and then that gets the information out there.
Share these videos on Facebook.
Totally.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll put them on when we post our episode. We'll put them on our Big Fat Vegan Radio page.
Absolutely. Too. And while you're at it, go to the NYCLASS Facebook page on Facebook and post on their Facebook wall about the horse-drawn carriage statewide bill.
Yeah, link to the petition.
Link to that. In fact, I love Tiny URL. You can take big, long URLs and make them nice and bite-sized. So if you go to tinyurl.com
/horsebill.
Sorry. Backslash is if you're like on an old Commodore
/horsebill.
tinyurl.com /horsebill. It will take you to a page by, I think it's by
Ban
Horse-Drawn Carriage. The Coalition to Ban Horse-Drawn Carriages. They have basically a list. It's a long list, but it tells you every little step you can do. We talked about this in our last podcast. So if you
It was on our first episode.
That's right, it was.
Because we love the horses.
We talked about the hard-on. We talked about my hard-on for Tony Avella. Tony, I still owe you a BJ if you want one.
And I will make you lasagna.
BJ and lasagna. You can't beat that. But so go to NYCLASS's Facebook page and post a link to tinyurl.com /horsebill and tell people about the statewide bill, because if you can get their 85,000 members, maybe more than that by now, if you could get their 85,000 members to know about the state bill and to support it, that's really how we're going to win this thing.
It's true.
I want to just add that, another way to get involved, of course, I believe the most effective strategy at this point is to ensure that Quinn isn't elected. That's the best way to help the horses and many other things. But there are organizations that are doing terrific work. The Coalition to Ban Horse-Drawn Carriages is out there flyering and educating the public. Win Animal Rights is out there on weekends doing protests.
Yeah.
So there are other groups to join on the doing grassroots work. Directly related to the horse-drawn carriages.
And the Coalition to Ban Horse-Drawn Carriages, I believe their website is
banhdc.org.
Banhdc.org.
Which I'll link to all of this in the show notes at bigfatveganradio.com.
Well, you better.
I will.
Yay.
Thank you for being with us, though, Donny. It's such a thrill to have you on the show.
Thank
really.
You for having me. This was
absolutely.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, that's our pleasure.
Was that amazing or what? Now you all can see why Donny Moss is my hero. And that's pretty much all we've got for this special episode of Big Fat Vegan Radio.
Please let us know what you thought about the episode by contacting us at bigfatveganradio.com. Thanks, Ben Strothman.
Thank you, Laura Yaz.
Oh, and one more thing.
Oh, yeah.
If
you guys could, if it's not too much trouble, when you get around to it, definitely, make an effort to, go vegan!